Well, now this is temple number 3, as you can see from the photograph that I have just posted. Now this is one of the most iconic of Nalanda structures, which with its multiple flight of stairs. You can see these stairs, and they take you all the way up to the top. Archaeological evidence shows that there have been 7 layers of construction on this temple, and out of which the 5th layer was the most interesting and the best preserved one. The temple is surrounded by numerous these stupas, which show that they must have been a resting place for many of the idols which are during that period during that time. And the apex, the top of the temple, it features a shrine chamber, which now only contains a pedestal upon which we can only imagine that the center part would be having a huge structure of Buddha resting on top. Now that we have covered this entire Nalanda University, we have covered the monasteries, which had around 300 apartments. And let me tell you one very, very interesting fact, that as per the Chinese accounts of the Chinese travelers, they have told that this included many rituals, and all these rituals were followed by all. Every morning, a morning bell used to be rung, after which all the monks were supposed to move out and go out for a bath to the nearest water bodies, and then they used to come back to their respective study halls. Right. In the evening, a Chaitanya Vandana was conducted, which included a 3-part service. And 3-part service means it included a set of hymns, shlokas, and selections from the scriptures that was there. And it was usually performed at the central location. Central location means this is the central location wherein where we are standing right now. This is a central location wherein it used to be performed. Or the other thing was that in each or every monastery, as we saw that the central, there used to be a central hall, so there used to be that service in the central hall, right? When one of the Chinese travelers, he went back to China in 695 AD, he had with him 400 Sanskrit texts which had to be translated, which were translated to Chinese. Then there was one traveler whose name was Yi Jing. And when he went back after 10 years of residence at Nalanda, right, he carried with him a large number of texts, and to be precise, 10 millions of manuscripts. When the trend used to be such that when a Buddhist scholar at Nalanda died, all his manuscripts were added to the library collection, and I'll even show you the library now. All of them used to be accumulated at the library. Let us go to the library now. We are inside the monastery number 1 right now, but let me tell you something more about this place. In the description that has been provided by the Chinese travelers, Huansang and all, right, the total number of teachers that was recorded at this university was around 1510. Out of these, 1000 were able to explain 20 collections of sutras and shastras, and 500 were able to explain 30 collections, and only 10 teachers were able to explain 50 collections. Huansang, the Chinese traveler, who was among the few who was able to explain 50 collections or more. And at that time, there was a head whose name was Shalbhadra. He had studied all the major collection of sutras and shastras at this Nalanda University, and he was the teacher who taught Huansang. So you can just imagine that what was the literacy level, or what was the knowledge level of the teacher of this person Shalbhadra at that given point of time. Now about the administration of this big monastery, it was actually a very, very daunting task to manage the administration of such a huge establishment. So how did they manage, and how did all of them reach up a general conclusion? There was a very simple logic to it, that actually all this would require the assembly of all the monks which was the resident monks rather, which would be a bit challenging. So what they did is that they had one Viharpal, and that Viharpal was responsible for conveying the decision of the monastery to each and every monk who stayed here. So his duty was to visit each and every room, each and every dormitory that the monks used to stay, and then convey them. So the best part was there was no use of beating or thumping to announce his case. In case a monk did not consent with all the residents, he was forced to leave the monastery. And if there was a difference of opinion on any particular issue, then he would get convinced or would convince the rest of all the monks staying here that his point of view is the correct one. And let me tell you that in the 700 years of the monastery existence, no man was ever allowed to bypass the rules of the monastery. So you can imagine the amount of discipline that they had. In 700 years, not even one time there was a case of indiscipline that was observed. That was the thing. And what about the revenue? How did they manage it? They managed the revenue because of the king, who directed the 60 villages nearby to deposit all the revenue to Nalanda University for the administration of Nalanda University. And not 60, it was rather 200 villages. So you can imagine 200 villages paying up the revenue to Nalanda University instead of the king. So that is how they were able to manage this. As we are walking out, let us, now that we have seen the entire ruins of Nalanda, let us learn something about the revival of this university as well. Well, in 1951, the Nav Nalanda Mahavira, a modern center for Pali and Buddhism in the spirit of the ancient institution, was funded by the government of Bihar near Nalanda ruins at the suggestion of Dr. Rajendra Prasad, the first president of the independent India. It was deemed to be a university in the year 2006. On September 1st, 2014 saw the commencement of the first academic year of the modern Nalanda University with 15 students in the nearby Rajgir. So, and the government has allocated around 455 acres of land for the development of the new Nalanda University. It is also being funded by the governments of China, Singapore, Australia, Thailand and other countries as well. The total fund that has been allocated for the revival of this university is around 2727 crores, that is around 454 million rupees. $454 million have been allocated to this university for the revival of the Buddhist studies and the different cultural studies as well. We have seen the ruins and we have even heard about the revival of this university. But it is a matter of great deliberation that how did this great university fail, right? The coincidence is that the decline of Buddhism in India, it coincides with the decline of Nalanda University in India. As per Huyen Tsang, Buddhism had lost its popularity but still managed to thrive because of the royal patronage that it received from the kings. The traditional Hinayan and Mahayana sect were imbibed with various tantric things and all, and secret rituals and magics. The final blow in the coffin came in the form of Muhammad bin Bakhtiar Khan Khilji, who was in the service of commander of Awadh, and he attacked this university thinking it to be some fort, and he burnt the entire university. He killed the monks of this university. But the worst part is when he stepped inside the university, he saw that there was a large number of books. He did not understand what were those books. He wanted to call some monk to so that he could understand those books as well. But none of them, since he had killed all the monks, he could not understand even one single thing. So what he decided, that since these books were of no use to him, he decided to burn that entire university, and the library as well. People say that the entire university kept on burning for 3 months. Can you imagine? 3 months. And for 3 months, the entire area was filled with smoke arising out of the burning of the library. But shame on us Indians. Yes, I repeat that we are literally a shameless bunch of idiots who do not know anything other than doing something for those barbaric marauders. What we have done is that we have named the nearest railhead Bakhtiarpur, which is just 25 or 30 kilometers from this place, after that marauder who destroyed one of the biggest center of educational excellence in the entire world. We are literally shameless bunch of idiots. I would not hesitate to call ourselves that. So it is still time that we take some steps and we do something. This is the Huensang temple in Nalanda, and it is very close to this Nalanda University. It's a beautiful temple. We couldn't go inside the temple because it is closed due to coronavirus, and our government has closed this till 31st of March. Otherwise, people say that this is actually very beautiful one. And even the view, if I show it to you from here, just have a look at the view. This is your friend and host Sushant Nirmal saying thank you and bye. Please do not forget to like and subscribe this video, and please do keep on posting your comments. Thank you and bye. Buddham saranam gacchami, dhammam saranam gacchami, sangham saranam gacchami.